Good evening. Welcome to Loveworld USA News. I'm TGK Andre. First, let's take a quick look at the top stories this evening. The House opens a probe into Tim Walz over nearly $1 billion in the Minnesota fraud scandal. Illegal immigrant superintendent exposed as registered Maryland voter after legal threat forces record release. Lawmakers demand answers after U.S. strike kills survivors on suspected drug boat. The Trump administration removes 8 NYC immigration judges amid discrimination lawsuit. And winter storm slams Midwest and Northeast as millions face snow, ice, and travel disruptions. And now to the news. House Republicans have opened a new investigation into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz over his administration's handling of a pandemic-era food aid program that federal prosecutors say became the largest COVID-19 fraud scheme in the country. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer from Kentucky said the panel will examine why, despite early warnings and whistleblower complaints, state officials allegedly failed to stop widespread fraud tied to the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. Comer accused Walz of negligence and claimed criminals, including individuals with alleged ties to Somali terrorists, stole nearly $1 billion intended to feed low-income children. Federal prosecutors have so far charged at least 78 defendants and say roughly $300 million in taxpayer funds were diverted through Feeding Our Future and related organizations. Minnesota education officials say the nonprofit and its partners submitted more than $500 million in claims, and critics argue the true losses may approach $1 billion. Nearly 500 employees of the Minnesota Department of Human Services have publicly accused the Walz administration of ignoring fraud warnings and retaliating against internal whistleblowers, including by sidelining oversight bodies such as the Office of the Legislative Auditor. The Treasury Department has also launched a separate federal probe into whether any Minnesota tax dollars connected to the scheme were diverted overseas to Somalia and possibly to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, an allegation not reflected in the current criminal indictments. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said his department is moving quickly to determine whether funds meant for public assistance were misused to support terrorism, vowing to share findings as the investigation progresses. The Justice Department has described the Feeding Our Future case as the largest pandemic relief fraud prosecution to date, but has not confirmed any terrorism link. Walz, a Democrat, has defended his administration's response while acknowledging the seriousness of the scandal. He said last week that those who exploited Minnesota's generous social programs are going to jail, and argued it is wrong to demonize an entire community over the actions of some individuals tied to the fraud cases. Speaking on NBC's Meet the Press, Walz said he takes responsibility for backing prosecutions and emphasized that Minnesota remains a well-run state, even as federal and congressional investigators intensify scrutiny of how the alleged fraud was able to spread. Maryland officials were forced to release unredacted voter registration documents after legal pressure from conservative groups, revealing that illegal immigrant Ian Andre Roberts falsely claimed U.S. citizenship. Roberts, originally from Guyana, had been serving as superintendent of Iowa's largest school district before Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested him in September. The case immediately raised new concerns about Maryland's lax voter roll safeguards and the willingness of officials to hide critical eligibility information. The unredacted documents show Roberts checked yes when asked if he was a U.S. citizen, a revelation conservatives say exposes deep flaws in Maryland's election system. Groups like the American Accountability Foundation and Restoring Integrity and Trust in Elections argue that the state attempted to black out vital information, preventing the public from knowing whether non-citizens are being kept off the rolls. They say this case is likely just the tip of the iceberg in a state where Democrats dominate election oversight. Roberts' arrest stunned parents and residents after officials revealed his long criminal history, past narcotics charges, and expired work authorization. Despite those red flags, he moved between school districts for years, even while being listed as a registered Democratic voter in Maryland. DHS records show he was carrying a Glock pistol, knife, and thousands in cash when arrested, and he now faces federal firearms and immigration charges. Conservatives argue the scandal proves that sanctuary-style states cannot be trusted to maintain clean voter rolls, especially when key information is hidden behind redactions. They say Congress must take action to enforce citizenship verification, require voter ID, and initiate federal audits in states like Maryland. For many, this case only reinforces long-held concerns about non-citizen registrations and the broader integrity of the nation's elections. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and senior military leaders are under scrutiny after the Pentagon acknowledged a second U.S. strike, killing survivors of an earlier attack on a suspected drug smuggling vessel in the Caribbean. Democrats claim the incident may violate the laws of war, which require rescuing wounded combatants, while the White House says commanders acted within their authority. Hegseth, who said he monitored the operation live, insists the mission was lawful and rejects reports that he issued any kill all survivors directive. The debate now centers on what intelligence guided Hegseth's initial order and why Admiral Mitch Bradley, head of Joint Special Operations Command, approved a follow-up strike. Bradley, a respected former Navy SEAL recently elevated by President Donald Trump to lead U.S. Special Operations Command, reportedly acted based on threat assessments and legal guidance available at the time. His supporters say he is known for following the law strictly, while critics demand to know whether the alleged smugglers pose an immediate danger to U.S. forces. The legal basis for the operation remains a flashpoint. President Donald Trump has argued that drug traffickers threaten American lives as severely as foreign terrorist groups, even designating certain cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Legal analysts dispute the comparison, noting Congress has not authorized military force against narcotic smugglers. Lawmakers on both sides say they are awaiting intelligence briefings to determine who was aboard the vessel and whether the strikes were justified. Republicans caution against jumping to conclusion, while Democrats argue killing shipwreck survivors could constitute a war crime if unsupported by intelligence. Admiral Bradley is expected to brief Congress this week, and several lawmakers say accountability will depend on whether the report and orders can be substantiated. Watch this.
As one of the 21 drug boat strikes on suspected narco-terrorists is now under growing scrutiny. The Washington Post reported Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth gave an order to kill everybody on board before a vessel attack on September 2nd. When 2 people survived, the Post says the Special Operations Commander overseeing the attack ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions, and the 2 men were blown apart in the water. While Hegseth has denied he gave any such order, Democratic and Republican lawmakers are vowing to investigate.
There's a lack of clarity in what is a very significant military action.
We'll begin our oversight and get to the facts.
On Thursday, Navy Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, who the White House said ordered the second strike, is expected to provide a classified briefing.
The Trump administration has dismissed 8 immigration judges working at 26 Federal Plaza in New York City, an action confirmed by the National Association of Immigration Judges. The move follows the firing of another judge who has since sued the Department of Justice, claiming she was targeted for discriminatory reasons rather than performance. Former Judge Tanaya Niemer, who served in Ohio, alleges she was removed because of her gender, dual Lebanese-American citizenship, and prior run for local office as a Democrat. Her lawsuit says she was abruptly dismissed during her probationary period despite earning top performance ratings, calling the administration's actions a rushed effort to purge disfavored civil servants. The firings come as more than 100 immigration judges have been pushed out, reassigned, or resigned under the Department of Government Efficiency's Fork in the Road program. At the same time, the Department of Homeland Security is actively hiring deportation judges, with remote positions offering salaries over $159,000. Highlighting a major shift toward rapid immigration enforcement under President Donald Trump. Niemer, escorted out of the court upon her dismissal, claims the government has failed to provide a legitimate reason for terminating her. Her attorneys argue the Justice Department is asserting unconstitutional authority to fire federal employees without regard for civil rights protections. She's asking a D.C. court for reinstatement, compensatory damages, and a ruling affirming that her rights were violated as the immigration court backlog surpasses 3.7 million cases. The news will be back after this break. Don't go anywhere.
In a world that's always moving, staying connected to the right resources makes all the difference. Welcome to the Loveworld App Store, the digital home of everything that powers your journey in the Loveworld nation. Here, Discovery is simple and meaningful. With our categories section, you can explore a wide range of apps designed to enrich your spirit.
I'm praying specially for you. You that have been sick. You need a miracle.
On the Loveworld App Store, you can access all your favorite apps, such as Healing School app, King's Chat, PCDL, Rhapsody app, Love Tunes, ESPYs, Loveworld Worship, Herald app, Alpha TV, King's View, C-Flix, Hello Loveworld, PCDL for Kids, King's Conference, and so much more. Each application is created to serve a unique purpose and bring you closer to a life of impact. Explore My App feature, where your most valued tools are gathered in one convenient place. It's your personalized hub, ready whenever you are. The Loveworld App Store is more than a collection of apps. It's a vibrant ecosystem built to inspire faith, foster connection, and equip you for impact. Visit www.lwappstore.com to download the app on your device. Explore a world where purpose meets technology. Loveworld App Store. All your world in one place.
Welcome back. A major winter storm is sweeping across the Midwest and into the Northeast, bringing heavy snow, icy roads, and widespread travel hazards for more than 50 million Americans. Kansas City saw up to 5 inches of snow, Louisville recorded about 3 inches, and cities like St. Louis and Indianapolis dealt with hundreds of crashes as conditions deteriorated. Police in Indianapolis reported more than 150 collisions since Sunday, urging drivers to stay off the roads. The system is now pushing into Appalachia and the inland Northeast, where ice poses a significant threat in areas of North Carolina and Virginia. Snow totals of 2 to 4 inches are expected from Ohio to western New York, with heavier bands of 4 to 6 inches possible in northern Pennsylvania and central New York. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency in several counties, warning residents to prepare for dangerous travel and freezing conditions. Across eastern Pennsylvania, school closures are widespread, and winter storm warnings stretch from northeast Pennsylvania to central Maine. Forecasters say some communities could see 9 to 12 inches of snow as the storm intensifies. While major East Coast cities will see mostly rain, a brief wintry mix around Washington, D.C. could cause morning disruptions on untreated roads. By Tuesday night, rain will taper off in New York City but continue in Boston, while snow persists from Albany through Maine. Officials across multiple states are urging residents to use caution, stay off icy roads when possible, and prepare for extended delays as winter weather continues to sweep the region. Let's take a look.
This morning, a major winter storm bearing down just as an estimated 3 million people fly home from the Thanksgiving holiday.
We're going to get an extra day in the city because our flight got canceled.
Chicago walloped, more than 1,000 flights canceled, and hundreds more delayed at O'Hare during the height of the storm. The Felt family from New Orleans stranded for nearly 12 hours.
We've been getting 1 hour increment delays since about 8:30 this morning.
Snow-covered tarmacs and icy plains. Crews scrambling to keep up.
I'm in the machine right now getting the snow, putting it down, laying it down, trying to keep y'all safe.
That storm system stretching from the plains to the Great Lakes, 8 inches in Rochester, Minnesota, lake effect bands slamming the region. And in Terre Haute, Indiana, state police rushing to this 45-vehicle pileup on I-70. Slick roads shutting down the highway for hours. Stranded drivers on the side of the road wrapped in blankets in blizzard conditions.
Costco has filed a lawsuit seeking a full refund of import duties it paid under President Donald Trump's global tariffs. The company argues Congress, not the president, holds tariff authority and asks the U.S. Court of International Trade to hear its case. The retailer moved to merge its lawsuit with nearly 24 similar cases from other companies, challenging the use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. One related case is already before the U.S. Supreme Court, which is expected to rule early next year. If the court rejects the tariffs, more than $90 billion in refunds could be owed. Costco says companies must file their own cases to ensure repayment, even if the tariffs are deemed unlawful. It is also seeking protection from paying further duties during the ongoing legal process. The White House defended President Donald Trump's tariff actions, calling the economic stakes significant and urging a swift Supreme Court decision. Officials also emphasized that the tariffs were designed to protect American businesses and workers from unfair foreign competition. asserting that overturning them could undermine U.S. trade interests and cost jobs. Let's take a look.
Now, the case before the Supreme Court that we are still waiting a decision on is determining the legality of those specific tariffs, not the sector tariffs like on aluminum and steel, but those fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs. And so Costco has filed this suit because they are concerned that even in the case where the Supreme Court rules that those tariffs are unlawful, that the president didn't have the power to put those in place and that power actually lies with Congress, Costco is concerned that they aren't going to get the money that they paid refunded. That would be something that would be talked about before, that all of those businesses would get that money back. And so there is a date that's coming up, December 15th, where a number of the courts, lower courts that have looked at this case that ultimately made its way up to the Supreme Court, that have said, these companies that are waiting for money back in the case that they are ruled unlawful may not actually see that money. So Costco has filed this case in order to try and, get around that December 15th date.
Billionaires Michael and Susan Dell announced a massive $6.25 billion donation to expand President Donald Trump's new Invest America Trump accounts, a national program that creates investment savings accounts for American children. The funds will provide a $250 deposit for up to 25 million kids, supplementing the $1,000 federal contribution created under President Donald Trump's signature tax and spending law passed earlier this year. Under the Invest America framework, every qualifying child receives a tax-advantaged account that tracks the stock index and allows up to $5,000 in private annual contributions. The Dell donation broadens eligibility to most children 10 and under, and possibly some older, who are born before the federal program's cutoff dates. Sign-ups are expected to begin July 4, 2026, though officials acknowledge logistical details are still being finalized. The Dell said even modest early savings can transform a child's financial outlook, calling the investment a long-term commitment to America's future. President Donald Trump praised the couple as two great people, celebrating the donation as proof that private philanthropy can help amplify his administration's pro-family economic agenda. White House officials called the Trump accounts revolutionary, saying more private sector participation is expected. Supporters argue the program encourages personal savings and builds generational wealth, complementing President Donald Trump's broader push to give working families greater financial footing. Critics, however, question implementation costs and potential inequities, though the administration says the program is designed to empower parents and expand opportunity for millions of American children. Watch this.
Giving Tuesday, one of the biggest days of the year for philanthropy and charitable giving. And this afternoon, Michael and Susan Dell are committing to one of the largest private donations in American history, which will directly benefit the next generation of American children through the new Trump Accounts program that we created in our One Big Beautiful Bill. And Michael and Susan came to see me along with Brad, and they said, this is an idea. And I said, I think, it's just so good and so unique. But that's why he's been so successful, and they've been so successful in life and in business, because they're unique. Trump Accounts will be the first, I guess you could say, real trust funds for every American child, allowing family members, employers, corporations, generous donors to contribute money that will be invested and grow over the course of a child's life to be used for their benefit after they turn 18.
The news continues after this break. Stay with us.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Welcome back. Former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, sentenced to 45 years for helping traffic tons of cocaine into the U.S., was released from prison Monday after President Donald Trump issued a full pardon. Trump called Hernandez treated very harshly and unfairly, suggesting political motives influenced the trial. Hernandez was convicted in New York on cocaine trafficking and related weapons charges. While he had previously presented himself as an ally in anti-drug efforts under multiple U.S. administrations, court evidence showed he protected the drug trade using national police and military forces. His release comes amid a race within Honduran presidential election. Trump has publicly supported conservative candidate Nasri Asfura, criticizing the electoral process and warning of consequences if votes are miscounted. Preliminary results showed Asfura with a narrow lead over Salvador Nasralla, with parts of the vote counting system offline. Trump stressed the importance of completing the vote count, declaring democracy must prevail. His latest remarks increased pressure on the post-election environment, which will determine Honduras' political direction and shape U.S.-Honduras relations for the next 4 years. Watch this.
President of Honduras serving time in a U.S. prison, walking free after a pardon from President Donald Trump over the weekend. Juan Orlando Hernandez was serving a 45-year federal prison sentence after being convicted on drugs and weapons smuggling charges just last year. Word reaching his wife and adult children at their home in the country's capital.
Juan Orlando volverá, volverá.
On Truth Social, Mr. Trump saying Hernandez was treated very harshly and unfairly. On Sunday, defending the decision aboard Air Force One.
Well, I was asked by Honduras, many of the people of Honduras, they said it was a Biden setup. I don't mean Biden. Look, Biden didn't know he was alive, but it was the people that surround the Resolute desk, surround Biden when he was there, which was about very little time. And the people of Honduras really thought he was set up and it was a terrible thing. He was the president of the country. And they basically said he was a drug dealer because he was the president of the country. And they said it was a Biden administration setup. And I looked at the facts and I agreed with them.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday accused European governments of undermining U.S.-led efforts to negotiate an end to the nearly 4-year war in Ukraine, hours before meeting a delegation sent by President Donald Trump. Speaking in Moscow, Putin claimed European allies had added absolutely unacceptable conditions to peace proposals and were intentionally blocking progress while blaming Russia. He also repeated his assertion that Moscow does not plan to attack Europe, but warned the country is prepared to respond if challenged. Putin met with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump advisor Jared Kushner inside the Kremlin, where discussions centered on revision to the administration's draft peace plan. The visit follows a round of talks in Florida between U.S. and Ukrainian officials that reduced Trump's initial 28-point proposal to 20 items. The U.S. plan would rely heavily on Europe for long-term financial and security guarantees for a post-war Ukraine, prompting European governments to push for a stronger role in shaping the negotiations. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, meeting separately with leaders in Ireland, said he expected immediate updates from the U.S. delegation in Moscow and emphasized the urgency of securing concrete results. He added that he is prepared to meet President Trump directly if talks show signs of progress. Zelensky also warned European partners about ongoing Russian disinformation efforts aimed at influencing diplomatic discussions and encouraged close coordination among Western governments. As high-level diplomacy intensifies, Ukraine faces growing pressure at home and on the battlefield. The Kremlin claimed on Monday that Russian troops had taken control of Pokrovsk in eastern Ukraine, though Kyiv denied the assertion and said fighting continued. Meanwhile, European leaders, many of whom are not consulted in the original U.S. plan, are working to carve out a more prominent role in the peace process as negotiations move into a critical phase. Let's take a look.
President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff are set to meet Tuesday with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
I think that there's a good chance we can make a deal.
For months, President Trump has been working to broker an end to the fighting sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
Last month, we had 27,000 people killed in that ridiculous war that should have never happened.
Now, just before we end the news, let's take a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. The House opens probe into Tim Walz over nearly $1 billion in the Minnesota fraud scandal. Illegal immigrant superintendent exposes registered Maryland voter after legal threat forces record release. Lawmakers demand answers after U.S. strike kills survivors on suspected drug boat. The Trump administration removes 8 NYC immigration judges amid discrimination lawsuit. And winter storm slams Midwest and Northeast as millions face snow, ice, and travel disruptions. And that's the news for today. Join us at the same time tomorrow for more news. I'm TGK Andre. Good night, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.